Imagine walking around a cemetery, looking down at a headstone, seeing the names, the dates, wanting to know more about that person's story. There's an app. There's an app for that. It's called Memory Anchor. Memory Anchor works directly with cemeteries to allow you an interactive experience as you're going around a cemetery, looking at a headstone. You can click on the map, pull up an augmented reality photo of that person that will stand in front of you next to the headstone as you're reading about the person's history, their military history, who they were, where they came from, what they did, and have an experience right there in the cemetery. Memory Anchor is a company that is doing that for you. We're going to hear now from the co-founders, their why they created this company, what the vision for the company is, and how you can advocate for your local cemeteries to use this app. Hey, everybody. So we are here with Ryan and Matthew, the co-founders of Memory Anchor, and we're going to just jump right in. I've already done the intro, gotten interest peaked. So tell me how this originated. What was that original moment that sparked you guys to come up with this idea?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll handle that. So the original idea actually happened in a cemetery in the Netherlands called Gravestone, and I know I'm butchering that name. My in-laws are all Dutch, so they'll give me a hard time for that. But I come from a military background myself, and so my family, my parents met in the army, so a real big military history. And I was doing a project, a commemoration project at the time that involved taking a flute that was made from wood from a battlefield. And I was playing in all these different cemeteries from France, Belgium, Holland. And I found myself in a cemetery alongside a World War II vet named Willie McGregor. And it was his second time back to the cemetery, and he was visiting his brother. And so I was beside him playing Amazing Grace. And after playing it, I was talking to Willie, and then I went over to another grave of a soldier that I knew of, and his name was Lieutenant James Coster. I played Amazing Grace on his grave, and as I was sitting there, I'm looking around, and there's like 3,000 graves of Canadian soldiers who I didn't know the story of, and that's where the idea came. I'm like, how do we use the technology we have available to create an empathetic connection to these soldiers? I had lost a couple guys I worked with in Afghanistan when they had went over and deployed, and we could just see like they had families, dreams, aspirations, and there's so much more to a person than just a name on a headstone. And so that's when it happened. That was about 5 years ago. The original idea came, and we've been working on it ever since.
Now, a huge part of this is kind of creating a visual along with the story. It's not just reading and learning something, it's an experience. That's what I think makes it different than some of the other taphophile driven things you can do at cemeteries. Is you're creating almost this whole experience of seeing the person, reading their story, being at their grave. When did that all kind of become part of your vision for the company and for what you wanted to do?
Yeah, that's a great point, because it is like the context is so important. And when you're entering some of these cemeteries, there is a history there, and who this person was and what that kind of place in history, and being able to use these rich media sources like pictures and such was, it's really an evolution from the original idea. And the original idea was to actually use augmented reality, so you would see a picture floating by the headstone, and that's part of our technology. But like you said, is like it's evolved to a bit of storytelling, the ability to create a tour. And because one person supports the next person's story, like in some of these military sites, there's brothers buried in the site. One of the things that touches me so often is the fathers and some of their stories, and the letters home, they just break my heart. And so, when we use the software to go from one location to the next, or to a point of interest, it does create that context. It creates that bigger picture, which, like you said, is it allows people to find themselves in that story. I mean, ultimately, that's what we want people to do, is to find themselves in an individual, and that can really help them grasp just the totality of the sacrifices that have happened. So it's really an evolution, and our software is constantly evolving as we find new ways and more effective ways to kind of reduce the barriers of remembering people.
Now, you guys have gone to Silicon Valley. You're going to higher ups in the countries. I mean, you guys are meeting with some pretty epic people to create this app and to keep moving it forward and making it more accessible to everyone. Tell us a little about the process, maybe from origination, where it really started and how you're growing it out. And once you work with a cemetery, what that really looks like.
Ryan, do you want to take that one? Okay. Sorry.
Well, I was kind of looking at you. Yeah. Well,
okay.
Why don't you go? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll just do a quick cut there, Kari. Yeah. So the company was incorporated 3 years ago. Actually, we just celebrated our 3rd birthday, so it's kind of a toddler, I guess. It was born in the early days of the pandemic. Ryan and I were crazy enough to be sitting at home and starting this business. And it's grown into a real international thing. We're based in Calgary, Canada. We're just north of Montana, but we're a remote company, an international company with global ambition. And our team is made up of Canadians, Americans, and Brits, and we're just all on board to see this become something that the world can participate in and bring commemoration to the world on mobile. The app is in 7 countries now, and more. We're looking at expanding to South Korea, and we'll get to that, but we're working on some interesting projects there. And our early adopters are really, it's just really inspiring to see that they work, the attitude that they bring to their work every day. And the cemetery industry is an old industry, and for us to be bringing something, some technology to this, it's just been amazing to see the adoption and the excitement in the community as well. It's a very close-knit community. They take it very seriously, and so we have to take that same perspective that the company that we're building, it has to be a generational company. It has to be fully in step, aligned with their objectives to really bring this to life. So yeah, we've just been thrilled. And all of the different countries we're chatting with, they have amazing teams, amazing digital initiatives, and it's been really neat to see how we can collaborate on those and really line up and really just give small teams the technology to leverage to bring this to millions of people around the world. That's just so exciting. Like in the United States, the Veterans Legacy Memorial, that program, they're doing amazing things to commemorate. I think it's closer between 4.5 and 5 million US veterans. They're doing incredible things. And if you haven't checked it out, it's the Veterans Legacy Memorial online. They're doing just amazing work if you weren't aware of it. So yeah, it's been incredible to see. There's so many motivated people in this area, and it's really helped us grow and given us wings. And for a couple of guys starting the company in a basement, we're just glad that so many people have taken a chance with us to see this vision and grow with us.
Now, we've talked a lot about veteran cemeteries and things. That's not the only type of cemetery you're working with, right? Or for now, that is, and you're hoping to grow out into more public areas or whatever.
Yes, so we're taking baby steps into certainly the heart of the company. is with veterans. But we know that on the civilian side of things, if I can call it that, there are so many stories worth telling there as well. I mean, I have a dream, and I'm so busy, I really should get going on it. But adding profiles from my grandparents, my grandma passed away last summer. I haven't had a chance to add her, but it's something I've been meaning to do. And for my grandfather on my dad's side, my grandmother on my dad's side, just I think in a lot of ways it's maybe reflective of my own grieving process that I maybe doing that closes the chapter. But certainly for me, I think it'll be a really touching moment, and I think we could bring that to a lot of different families. We need to do it in the right way, and the civilian world is different. We had some conversations this week with some cemeteries in more civilian space, and it's the same thing. It's the same passion and interest, remembering people remembering people. I think we're really excited to see it grow in that space as well. It's certainly a growth area for us.
Now, when you go on board with a cemetery, or they go on board with you rather, it isn't where they just say, hey, here's our cemetery, do this. The cemetery is doing this work to upload and to put it in to be accessible to visitors and families. But the families are not kind of like Find a Grave. I know that's going to be one of the big questions I think you encounter is, how is this really different than Find a Grave, where you can look up a grave? But those are really volunteer driven, where yours is more cemetery driven, correct?
Yeah, that's an intentional approach. Early on in we're so focused building the product, building the technology, building the relationships, kind of like, well, who should manage the data? Should that be us, or should that be the cemetery operators? And ultimately, we made the intentional choice of the cemetery operators kind of being the sole source for that information, and they can work with families to have that family submitted information. It was really just ultimately like a principles-based decision of whose stories, and is it really our place to tell those stories? And we decided it wasn't. It was probably the cemeteries and the families and the holders of that information, because not our stories to tell.
Well, the cool thing about these is I just pulled up the app on my phone, and the cool thing is that augmented reality, that face that comes up next to the stone, or if you're sitting in your living room, you can create the same. You can look up one of these cemeteries that you have on that app already and can pull somebody up and their image is there in front of you. What is if someone's pulling this up and they really want to just quick go to one? I know we did this one day. Which cemetery should I pull up? Give me a walkthrough example here.
Yeah. Well, Brian, maybe this would be a good chance to highlight the Garrison Green Peacekeepers Park project. I know that one was really important to you.
Yeah, that project was an interesting project. So if it's a North America one, so it'll probably be closer to the top of the list for anybody in North America, because it kind of looks at where you are located and pulls up the different sites that are closer to you. And so Garrison Green it's a monument actually that has about 300 or so Canadian peacekeepers who were killed in operations, and that also includes Afghanistan and such. So like I was saying before, there's a few soldiers on there I worked with that are in there, like Mioch, Starker, Hornburg, they're from the Calgary area and such. And it's a really neat one there. It's kind of a little different from just a typical, what a cemetery would be, because it's a large monument. But there's 300 names. It gives you an idea of what a kind of a more complete site looks like. And it goes all the way back to Korea to modern time. And if you go through there and you type someone's name in, you'll find it, or you can just kind of scroll through and stop on someone's name that's interesting to you. And you can read their bio, or like you said, take a look at their photo in augmented reality and have it just there in front of you.
which I think is fun. And then you look crazy while you're sitting, like trying to you fly the person around and everything. But it is cool. And it is, I know, what cemetery, tell me a little of the first female that died in battle. What was,
oh yeah, Nicola Goddard.
Yeah.
So she's actually in Beechwood Cemetery. So my grandfather's actually buried there as well.
Okay.
And so that's the national cemetery. So it's like the American equivalent of Arlington. And so she's buried there. So last October I got to go out there. And so it was actually a really nice moment. I had some friends who were deployed on mission with her, really knew her well. And she was a really, from what I heard, you know, I never knew her personally, but a really dedicated soldier that would have wanted to be known for the quality of her, you know, her leadership and what she was, rather than the first female casualty of Canada. And so, you know, when we went to her grave and were able to look at it in augmented reality, it was a really touching moment to be there and just use that technology at her grave.
And that's, you know, taphophiles, I think, I don't remember 20 years ago, and maybe it's technology, that taphophiles could have such great cemetery experiences. You know, like you really can dive in, learn so much. They're so much more accessible. And this just is a whole nother level that I've never seen available to anybody. What are you hoping, you know, 2 years from now, what does this business or this app and this company look like for you guys?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. And I'll let Matt answer this as well. But we've been working on this together, and you know, we often talk, we call it, we go down the rabbit trails, because you know, it's almost like a fantasy of what it can be. But you know, we really do see, you know, ourselves as a leader in digital technology commemoration. We're probably one of the most advanced as far as what's out there right now as it goes to graveyards and some of the technology we're integrating. So we're looking at and right now we're in the middle of development with AI technology that what we call our cemetery assistant that can actually, for example, like our demo piece, I was just out in England and Brookwood Cemetery, amazing historical cemetery. I actually went in the wrong side of the cemetery and had to walk like 5 kilometers through it. It's huge. But, you know, as I'm walking through the cemetery, like there's a guy that won a Victoria Cross, which is like the equivalent of the Medal of Honor, and, you know, from the Boer War, and then just these amazing old graves everywhere. You know, my vision would be is that people could stop, and this is the other technology that we're working on, which is our scan a name or our memory anchor vision, where you literally just hold your camera up to it. It'll read the name on the grave and then pull you the information it has about that. So it'll be able to tell your location, go through the database, look at that. And so that's how we're integrating it. And so like instantly you're just like, there's the information. Who was this individual? And so, you know, the real nice thing, this is what is really kind of cool about it is, you know, the heart of our organization started with remembering and commemorating soldiers. And because that's been a very niche and a very uniformed environment, like when you look at a military gravesite, it's very uniform. We've been really able to iron out the technology so that we can now then like stem into bringing it into that civilian space and just bringing that rich history, that family legacy, all of that stuff. So my vision in 2 years' time is we have this technology available and it's starting to be implemented, you know, all over the world. I mean, the big, hairy, audacious goal would be is the #1 cemetery navigation and commemoration out there. So that's my vision, Matt.
That's totally different. Yeah, no, we have I love the BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goals.
Yeah,
because we have to keep that kind of eye on the horizon to see what's next on the product side, the technology side. I mean, artificial intelligence is a buzzword, and we see a lot of, you know, its use in the genealogical space. Actually, like we've seen, like, you know, kind of animate your ancestors and things like that. We're trying to apply a little bit more kind of practicality to it. I think that those are great ways to connect and engage with genealogical and historical things. But really, we're trying to think about, what are our users doing? What can we do to remove every barrier possible to meeting a veteran, to learning their story, seeing their photograph, and also doing it responsibly. Artificial intelligence is kind of a scary. It's pretty scary what it can do. And you see the headlines. This is really using AI for good. It's something we love to talk about. It's certainly also in the vein of accessibility, because introducing a feature like Scan a Grave, now we can assist those users who may have vision challenges or mobility challenges. They can't use the keyboard on their smartphone, but they still have a voice and they can still ask questions. They can literally walk into a cemetery and start talking to the cemetery, asking, who's here? What's the history? What should I know about this place? And who am I standing in front of? Can you, we had a conversation yesterday with the Veterans Affairs Agency, who asked, well, can you also, on television, you get descriptive text for folks that are vision challenged. Can you, great idea. We love hearing these ideas, because now we can include this in the next build, which is a monument could be described by its operator as, there's 2 plinths and 2 pylons, and there's an angel over here, and there's this and there's that, and there's a tomb of the unknown soldier, whatever. It can be described for people. So we love hearing these ideas, and there's so much to tackle to make these places more accessible, the information come to you faster, and just kind of transform your whole experience, whether you're standing in a monument or in a cemetery. We talked a little bit about voice stuff. That's something we're also excited about, because we're integrating that kind of thing into the mobile application, but we're also looking at different platforms like smartwatches. So it's maybe a little gauche to say, but kind of Siri for cemeteries, where you can talk to a cemetery assistant with your voice only, and just that will also, because we want to apply not just AI, but the whole technology in an intentional, careful way, because we don't want to take away from the cemetery experience of walking the rows and the sights and the sounds and the smells. We don't want people, we spend enough time attached to our phones with our text necks looking down. We don't necessarily want people to be staring at their phones as they go through a cemetery the whole time. We want them to put the phone away, and maybe the smartwatch is maybe a nicer way to even experience some of that information, and more in a less visual way. So you can talk to your watch and put your arm down and have your walk and discover more. So we're really excited about what the technology can do, and it's applying the technology for good. That's what's important.
That's an important point.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, I apologize. Yeah, I was going to just add to what Matt was saying, is from the very beginning, when we look at the augmented reality, when we're looking at AI, it's like what Matt was saying, it's like augmented reality for good, AI for good. This is why, some of our tech partners have been really excited to work with us, is because it's an actual application of it in a responsible and meaningful way. And that mantra Matt is saying there is important. We don't want people to be stuck behind their phones. We don't want to take away from the cemetery experience. From I think anybody who walks into these cemeteries, it's an experience. And, how do we add to that experience without blocking some of those more meaningful things? Just that feeling of awe, feeling of reflection, feeling a connection.
Yeah.
So
it's a careful balance, Ryan. We're really proud to be supporting some veterans causes here in Canada, and trying to pay a lot more attention to how can we bring commemoration to the next generation and get K-12 involved and engaged. And we have to be realistic as well with the technology, is that is where the world spends a lot of their time, and it really skews high when the younger you get. I mean, there's kids raised on iPads basically, right. And so how can we be part of that while still being educational and connecting them with the history of their country and the service and sacrifice of these veterans, and be in the classroom. So yeah, I think it's also being realistic with it. And yeah, we just have to recognize that that's the platform of choice, smartphones, iPads, that kind of thing. They're not loading up a website. Like, what's a website? I don't know if kids use websites anymore, but it's all Roblox and a Minecraft.
Yeah.
Well, and if you're putting in this much data and
Yeah.
as much visual, and you're getting into the AI and all this stuff, can you build a cemetery? Like, I can go walk through a cemetery in France visually and stop at a grave and pull their things up. Like, is the next step that a kid could pull up their their phone and go to Arlington via their phone and look at headstones and get a realistic experience and dive into looking at who's there without making the trip if they're not able to, or as a class do those things. Once you get, I think, into that technology dreaming, there's just really no end to it, that you could go and just keep going with some of those steps to make it accessible to more people and to allow more people to have those. There is something about being in the cemetery and everything, but it's not always for people. People don't have the funds to travel, don't have the means. Can't just go to France and walk through different places, but they can. I mean, I can pull up so many things from that app, from the Memory Anchor app, to look at, which I love, and be part of different, stories and everything. Now, Memory Anchor is a way to stop a memory from leaving. So who came up with the name?
Oh my gosh.
Oh geez, that was a journey. So the initial, it's like the initial idea was to do the Normandy coastline, and it was called Faces of Normandy, the first idea I had. And then, it's like, hey, well, why just stop at Normandy when we can just do this for everyone? Like, that makes more sense. So this is the evolution. And then it became Faces of Valor. But Americans and Canadians spell valor differently. Right. So, and then we're like, well, why should this even stop, like, at just military? And so the name became Memory Anchor. And that was a suggestion Matt had come up with, and, it stuck. And we anchored that in.
Point for Matt.
Yeah, point for Matt. But it was tough.
It's tough.
Anybody naming a business or trying to come up with a name, it's like, what about this? What about this? But yeah, but it is, it ended up being really good because, it had to do with a bunch of different things, but even aspects of the technology, but it's about anchoring those memories in, right?
So what does that first conversation sound like, where Ryan's got an idea? Do you call him out on the phone? Are you just like having a drink one day or something, and you're like, oh my gosh, by the way, here it is? Like, what did that sound? What was that like?
Oh man. So Matt and I go back to like our childhood. Like, we've known each other for a long time, and Matt is exceptionally talented with multimedia and different things like that. He won't say he is, but he is, like, some of the stuff he can produce. And I had these original ideas, and he has a big military history in his family. Like, his grandfather, I'm telling his history now, but landed on truck number 1, D-Day +2, First World War. So he has this real deep appreciation in his family for this, and he just loved the idea. Like, I talked to him about it, and then I was given a talk at the military museums about it, and he came and filmed it, and then he made some promo videos stuff early on, and and it was really clear to me that I didn't know what I'm doing from a business sense, and Matt had a lot of skills, and that being partners in this would be a lot smarter. And so I'm like, let's just do this together. And he was like, the deep appreciation that he would just go 2 feet in and say yes, like, and the trust and the belief in the idea, and the emotion that Matt brings, like, it's the content that we talk about, it's not uncommon for us both to tear up at times. And to be honest, like, the heart is so important, and you won't find a guy with a bigger heart. And that's why he's my business partner. And I mean that.
Are we going to cry again? Because I'm about to.
I'm tearing up.
No crying.
No crying. It's it's funny. I am, I was thinking about through your question, Kari, and it's like, do we talk about things? I'm thinking like, oh, I would actually be fascinated to look at the number of telephone minutes that we have, a number of text messages. I talk to Ryan more than I talk to my wife or my kids. It's the number of video calls. Yeah, we've lived a lifetime together through this company. Yeah.
And the ongoing joke is, I think we did it a couple times today too, is like, we have all these things where like this country here is getting a hold of us, the United Nations we're talking to, all of these things. And so we go and we talk and we're running ideas. And then the joke is like, okay, talk to you in 5 minutes. And then we hang up. And a lot of the time we end up calling each other back in 5 minutes with this other piece. But yeah.
It's not a bad thing. You're better together. I will sing.
Absolutely.
But I will not sing. So how can people wanting to, experience this, start looking into it, and how can they support you as this is growing? What can people do to help connect to their own cemeteries? That's what we're doing, is encouraging viewers to help you guys.
Yeah.
So what can they do?
Yeah, no, thank you. It's a big thing. So I guess if I could like frame it in the scope of like a couple projects that are upcoming, actually, maybe that would be a good way to address it. Well, of course, the app is available in the app stores on Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. And but in the terms of a couple of projects that are coming up, we do have something coming up around the Korea 70th anniversary of the end of the Korean War, here at the end of July. It's in less than 4 weeks, but we have been in touch with, and it's a fascinating site and a really interesting conflict. I mean, Korea, like kind of the forgotten war. It's one of those conflicts kind of slips between the cracks. And we've been in touch with the United Nations. The United Nations runs one cemetery in the world, and it's in Busan, South Korea, just on the south of the peninsula. And there are 11 some nations with burials from every single country that took part in it. And so we're kind of raising a rallying cry. It's a volunteer project. We have looked for some funds from Veterans Affairs Canada, but it's very close. It's 4 weeks away. So we're not holding our breath, but it is our goal to get as many countries involved that are in the conflict, get their veterans in the app so they're represented in the lead up to the 70th anniversary. I think it's been super inspiring. We were sending emails to random embassy people and people of different defense agencies, complete strangers. And it's just incredible to see the community coming together for this. We think that we'll have a lot of nations represented. And so I guess anyone listening in particular for this project, like if you have a network in Korea, because we don't have the best network in Korea, any contacts at any of the nations, embassies, armed forces, we'd love any connections to folks that can, that would want to see their nation's veterans represented in time for the 70th. It's a really, really amazing site, and some really inspiring stories. One interesting development, we were in touch with the British Ministry of Defense, and they have some caseworkers that are leading the efforts to find, still to this day, missing British veterans lost in the conflict. And so we're just trying to figure out, like, where do we, like, their names are on the walls at the cemetery, but they're not, it's just a really, I think it's really easy to forget that, these conflicts. I mean, there's the US has an agency for missing veterans, so does sort of the Brits, and it's easy to forget that they're still missing. I guess, I mean, it's not easy to forget, but it's, you know, to an everyday person like myself that, you know, that hasn't had that lived experience where you have a missing family member. I can't imagine what it's like. And so there are some, I think, some stories that will come out for these British veterans that have been missing. We're going to, I hope, help to tell that story with the Ministry of Defense. And so we're really glad to have their collaboration. So yeah, and then I'm looking forward to next year. It's the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Yeah, we're working with several partners to help make that a reality. And so we just want to tell the story of the conflict and also at the individual level as well. And you know, in the spirit of the Allied efforts, really get if we can, the Allied nations together to commemorate these veterans and tell the story of the place as well. You were talking about you know, giving a sense of like, well, what does this cemetery feel like? What does it look like? And give more than just like a top-down view. From a technology standpoint, like we are actively investigating that, and we think it's possible, thanks to some recent advances in satellite technology and 3D imaging, where we can take a 2D view and multiple photographs and turn it into more of a 3D model, so that when you're on our app and you tap into Point to Hawk, for example, you can see that 3D of the site, of the you know, of the beaches, of the landscape, and give people a lot more sense of what that place is like. And, you know, and Ryan, you've been on those beaches. I think you mentioned at one point, actually, you tried to run from the water to the heights to high tide.
Yeah, it was low tide at Omaha and Juneau. So Omaha, of course, people are quite familiar with, and Juneau was a Canadian beach. And I was like, okay, with my dad, you know, we went on that trip, and they're like, let's run from here to there. And it took like a good 2 minutes at a good clip to get there. And I couldn't imagine doing that under fire, with like
Your
60
pack
pounds
and
of
everything.
carrying all that. Like it was actually, it was incredibly eye-opening. And so it's like Matt's saying, is trying to use this technology to create context and such too. So, you know, these are two big projects that we have coming up. You know, we're doing a quick sprint for the 70th and hopefully hopping off there with, you know, some really good connections. And our goal is to have every country remembered and all those sites for the 80th. And so if people download the app, leave a nice review if they like it. You know, that's can't tell you. Everybody says leave a 5-star review. I hope you leave a 5-star review, because it is a pretty amazing technology, and we're really excited to to keep your eyes out in the coming seasons for the next release, which is basically going to be this app on steroids. It's going to have some really nice features and user experience layout just kind of built on top. So,
you know, I hadn't even thought, as you were just talking, I thought about Pearl Harbor and how amazing this at Pearl Harbor would be. It's unlike really, you know, most cemeteries where you're walking and you stop at a grave and, you know, there's a body down in this grave, or part of a body or whatever. And there you're standing over water and you're looking at all these names on the wall. And somewhere down in that water are these, you know, bodies that are just encapsulated or lost, that were lost during it. Such a different thing, but to be able to just even pick a few names to learn about people whose bodies were there and left there. And then also, as the names get added, because there are people that as they die that had served there are getting cremated and taken back and scattered there.
Yeah, great point.
Permission that they can be added and as their, you know, burial place. I hadn't even thought of some of that type of unique burial ground, like Pearl Harbor. And I think that would just be such an experience to be able to pull up those stories like that.
And that's, you know, that's really the spirit like that we want to capture, like reducing that barrier. Because if you go out on that boat, you head to the Arizona, you go on the platform, and at the end there's all those names. And if you can just hold your phone up again, I'm wondering who this, you know, Jason Smith was, and you hold the phone up, reads it, and there's the bio, there's the picture, and then you just put that picture floating right above the Arizona in augmented reality, and it allows you to take a quick snap of it so you can have that piece and go with that piece. And that's it, like learning a little bit more, because history buffs are going to hate me for this. I think it was like 1,500 sailors that went down with the Arizona, an incredible amount. But how do we reduce those barriers? Because each of them was a person, a son, dad, and they have a story worth remembering.
Little baby. All I'm picturing is little Jason.
Yeah.
This is like this little 18-year-old little faced baby that, died that day. That's, as soon as you said that, I'm like, oh, all I picture is this little boy, that wanted his mom
just can't imagine, right? And that's it. And and for me, like I said, it's ever since becoming a parent, and I think of there's one actually, Matt and I always talk about this, like there's certain stories that capture you, and it's like you got that picture in your face. And for me, there in the Normandy gravesite for the Canadians, there's a guy named Walter Charter. And I just came across him. Like, I went through that cemetery years ago. I might have walked by his grave, but in my research, I came across, and as a telegraph he sent home to his son, and it's there, and it kills me because it just says, "Dear Tommy, Uncle Eric says you're getting really big. I want you to know Daddy's okay. He only wishes he could be home, so we could go and have some fun and go for a picnic. And Dad is okay. I love you. Wally," and he never made it back, right? Never made it back to be a dad, and that son grew up without a dad, and I just can't imagine that. And, the least we can do is remember that, remember him. And I think we do such a service to the memories just by speaking their name, speaking a bit of their story. And that's why, again, and that's why we hope to reduce the barrier, that you can just hold your phone up and it can bring that to you immediately.
Nice. Well, thank you guys for sharing this. Guys, go download the app, Memory Anchor, download it, look at it, start playing in there, pull up people, learn about somebody. And then if you have a local cemetery, especially a national cemetery or one that's, veteran based for the most part, talk to them, say, hey, have you guys heard about Memory Anchor? You should call them, connect with them, get this technology in there so we can learn more about who is buried there. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll have all of the information in the description of the video so you guys can learn more and share stories about your loved ones, veterans or not, down in the comments. Bye.
Hey.
Bye now.
Bye. Thanks, Kari.
I'm thrilled you're here, and I'll cover two things in this video. First, we're so glad to share this preview of Memory Anchor Cloud, where we'll dig into some really cool features that you can use to level up the visitor experience at your sites. Second, I'll share a little bit more about us and the drivers behind Memory Anchor's mission. So I'm going to talk to you about both of these things, but first, let's get you to the walkthrough. If you haven't seen the current version of Memory Anchor Cloud or Explorer, here they are. Explorer is the mobile app. Think of Explorer as Google Maps meets Ancestry.com meets Pokemon Go. Whereas Cloud lives in your browser, and it's where trusted organizations build the digital experiences seen on Explorer. The best way to think about Memory Anchor Cloud, and we'd love to call it Mac, but we also don't want to get sued, is this. Cloud is the magical workbench where things are built, and Explorer is the display case. They work seamlessly together, so any changes you make in Cloud are mirrored in Explorer. And look, in Cloud, you can manage all of your organization's sites in one place. You can switch sites on and off, build augmented reality activations, define walking paths for visitors, link stories together with interactive tours, and ultimately use all of these things to tell the stories that matter. With Explorer, you see your updates right away, and it's how your audience accesses your sites, searches, gets directions, and takes the tours that you put together. Think of Explorer as the last mile of geospatial, and that's where Explorer is different. Most navigation apps are designed for cars. They'll get you to a place, but they won't tell you what's around, encourage you to explore, or share a story with you, and that's what we're working to change. As a company, we've been around about 2 years now, and things are going pretty well. We've been working with some inspiring partners and rolling out pilot sites in a few different countries this year, and Every month, we release new stuff to make storytelling with Memory Anchor even better. We've seen our partners use the platform to tell really important stories. New partners are joining regularly, and we're really excited to see what you'll do with it. At Memory Anchor, our mission is to make the tools that connect humankind with the stories and organizations that matter. And what we see ourselves being at a high level is really just reimagining the way that digital storytelling happens. So it's no longer exclusively for experts like software engineers, but instead these tools are in everyone's toolkit. What we hear from our partners is they want an elegant app experience that their teams can create and publish with and tell their stories in new and exciting ways, but they don't want all the headaches that come with building it out themselves. With Memory Anchor, you can just get started right away. So we're excited to see what you build, and we're here if you have any questions. Thanks.